Alright battlers, I have a brand new video for you today. This is inspired by a video made by ForTheBattles. So she made a video essentially breaking down how better trainers practice, and the premise behind her video was stress testing your lines. So essentially you pick 3 Pokemon and you stress test them against all kinds of different scenarios and environments. This way you can learn with your 3 how they best interact against various different teams. It's a more tedious way to practice, but when you try to just play all the time and go for all the wins that you can, you don't learn nearly as much as you do when you have an actual structured practice. So this video is stress testing the same line that she used in her video. This is Bastiodon, Haunter, and Medicham. Battlers, let's see what we can learn. I actually have 2 opponents in this video. The first is 6'7" Kevin, the second is Church. I'm actually going to open with Bastiodon in every single game. So we open with Bastiodon into Alolan Marowak. I learned from the Sims that a Bastiodon will win this matchup in most cases, so I'm actually not going to shield this attack. It is the Bone Club. It is super effective, and then 6'7" is going to swap into his Medicham. We all know that Haunter is the hardest wall for Medicham in the entire meta. As you can see there, the Power Punch does literally nothing. I'm going to fire off the Shadow Punch here against the Medicham. He does decide to shield. I'm going to use a few more Shadow Claws here. To protect the Haunter, I am going to shield. I might have foregone it there, but it is a boosted Ice Punch, so I need to be careful there. I do have the Dark Pulse and the Shadow Punch ready. In comes the Mawile, and I'm a little bit late here. I learned here that when something like a Mawile switches in, the key is to under tap, because I almost missed my opportunity here. I do fire off 2 Dark Pulses. He decides to defend the second one. So I could have done a ton of damage to that Mawile if that would have gone unshielded. That's something important to note. I do decide to bring in my Medicham here, and this Mawile is so weak that it's only barely able to get to the Power Punch. It actually is a Vice Grip. I was hoping that it wasn't something more deadly, so I could have foregone the shield there. I have a ton of energy with Medicham, so I'm going to Psychic this AWAC and then use switch into Bastiodon with a ton of energy to actually win that match. We're opening with Bastiodon here against Empoleon. Empoleon is going to win this matchup, so I did lose the lead. I do swap here into Medicham. 6'7" is going to switch into Claydol. So I do have some energy ramped up with Medicham. Even though the Power-Up Punch nerfed the Medicham's effectiveness to a degree, it is still extremely hard to deal with once it gets going. I do fire off the Psychic here against the Claydol. The Power-Up Punch nerf and the Psychic buff kind of in a way balances out the Medicham. It just makes it a different kind of competitor, so keep that in mind when you're using it in your Sinister Cup battles. I do fire off another Power-Up Punch here, and we're actually going to be able to counter down that Claydol. I do have the Power-Up Punch ready, and just wanting to expend all the energy I've earned, I do fire it off. He does not shield, that's okay. I'd make the fast swap into Haunter, so I have saved that Medicham in the back in case I have time to make a sacrificial swap later. He is going to defend against that Shadow Punch. I actually do decide to shield here. I decide to shield my Haunter. In comes Empoleon, and as you can tell, I didn't under tap, and I think the shield was also a mistake because I do have my Bastiodon in the back, and Bastiodon with a shield is much more useful. I'm going to absorb this Hydro Pump no problem, or Flash Cannon, excuse me. So even though I made that mistake, I think I do win this match. I do go here for the Stone Edge against the Drifblim. We're bringing it really low with those smackdowns, however, he does get to a charge move. It turns out that it is Shadow Ball, and that actually brings us down. So if he would not have made that mistake earlier, we could have won. Going into this round, Bastiodon versus Dusclops. So 6'7" did an excellent job of switching in different Pokemon to give me different looks. I asked him just to run random things against me, and it worked better than I could have asked. An excellent training partner, and I'm so glad we made that connection on Ghost Stadium. I'm able to counter down that Empoleon. In comes the Gardevoir. Now these charms are going to really hurt if it is what it is, and it is charms. I go here for the Psychic. Didn't draw the shield with the Power Punch, so I'm hoping I get a shield here. It's not very effective, but it still takes a huge chunk from that Glassy Gardevoir. I cannot bring in the... I actually do decide to bring in the Haunter. I'm going to absorb a couple of charms there, and as we just learned, just that moment, Charm actually doesn't take a huge chunk out of Haunter like Confusion does. I almost under-tapped there for my Shadow Punch, but we don't quite make it. It is Dusclops with 2 shields versus Bastiodon with 2 shields, and honestly guys, if it's not a fighting type, I take Bastiodon with 2 shields over just about anything else in the Sinister Cup meta. He is going to Shadow Punch us again. I'm going to use a few Smackdowns here, and I realize that I don't need to waste time burning those shields. I can just use the Smackdowns to win. We're going to absorb this Shadow Punch, no problem at all, and we win that game. We are going to open with Bastiodon against Bastiodon, guys. This is where things get tough for me because we are in the mirror match. I don't know how to deal with this, and I'm not exactly sure what the right move is. I make the swap into Medicham to absorb this Stone Edge, which I think probably helps me, but he brings in his Slowbro. So he's going to counter my Psychic type, Psychic Fighting, with a Psychic type of his own. I do fire off the Psychic, and he does shield. So these confusions are really starting to wear me down. This is not looking good from a Medicham, and plus having a quasi-water type in the back is going to make things harder for my Bastiodon. I have to bring it in because, you know, confusion will just melt my Haunter. I do have some energy from before, so I go in here with the Stone Edge, but remember, Haunter's in the back, and I still have a Bastiodon to deal with, so this is going to be very tricky. I'm going to protect my Bastiodon, realizing just how important it is for me in this match. I do shield that Water Pulse, fire off the Stone Edge here to take down the Slowbro, but this is an uphill battle for us still, because that Bastiodon has a ton of health. I do get to the Flamethrower here, and we're going to try to use it. But as you can tell, God, I realize now how tough it is opening against my Bastiodon because this thing is just a beast. 6-7 does fire off the Stone Edge. I'm going to try to get to another Flamethrower here, and we do. This is just the match of Titans, though. Whenever you're going up against the walls, Bastiodon is just its face is a wall. I mean, come on, you can't even get more literal than that. I'm going to try to win this matchup with the Smackdowns, and I chicken out and fire off the Stone Edge. We do bring it down, but I'm low on energy. I make the fast swap on a Haunter so that he cannot farm up my Bastiodon. I have another opportunity to undertap that I miss, so a big takeaway for me from this practice was to learn how to undertap better with Haunter, and 6-7 Kevin wins. We're switching over to Church now. I do decide to open with Bastiodon. He opens with Steelix, so this is not a good matchup for me. I'm actually going to switch into Haunter, and he decides to switch into Cresselia. The confusions are really going to hurt us. So we're only able to get in one Shadow Punch, but we've already worked that Cresselia down to a little more than a third health. I do bring in Bastiodon again, and I know I can take whatever this is. The Aurora Beam barely hurts. It hurts about as badly as the Shadow Punch does, which is saying something. I'm going to smack down that Cresselia, and I have a flamethrower ready for Steelix. It is going to do super effective damage. I swap into Medicham there, and maybe I got a little too fancy knowing that I had the energy advantage because in comes the Haunter. I do fire off the Psychic, and he does shield correctly. Shadow Punch will bring down Medicham, but I am going to smack down this Haunter, and I still have a slight advantage here. He is going to fire off the Shadow Punch, which I know I can take. Dragon Tails won't do that much damage, so it's really just a game of energy. He's going to fire off a charge attack here. Worried about the Earthquake. I do shield, but it's just the bait. It's just crunch. So that might have been a mistake on my part. I fire off the Flamethrower. I need to get to one more Flamethrower to possibly win this, and we almost do, but we do have to burn our last shield to do so. It is a second crunch. I'm going to fire off the Flamethrower here, and we actually take down the Steelix to win. We're going to open with Bastiodon yet again. In comes the Alola Marowak. We learned this from the first game. Bastiodon actually wins this matchup in most scenarios. He is going to get a little bit of energy and then swap. This is much better for me because now he's switch locked, so I do bring in my Medicham. I'm going to absorb whatever this is. It is a crunch, not a huge deal. Earthquake would have been a bigger deal. I do fire off the Power Up Punch here against him. It is super effective. Those counters are really starting to add up. Even post-nerf, Medicham is still a force in the Sinister Cup. I like it because it's able to beat a lot of fighters as well. I'm actually going to let this crunch through and then fire off one more counter to bring down the Steelix. Church is going to think things over for a moment. He decides to come in with Cresselia. Those confusions are going to hurt, but I'm able to get to one more Power-Up Punch, hoping to maybe draw the shield here, and we don't. That's okay. Still doing as much damage as we possibly can with the cards that were dealt. So I do bring in my Bastiodon here. I'm going to fire off the Stone Edge. I'm pretty sure Stone Edge is the right move against Cresselia. I'll probably check the sims there later. And this kind of practice gives you that opportunity as well. You can say, oh, well, this is what I did. Was this the right move? He does swap into that Alola Marowak, but he's got a ton of energy ready on his Cresselia, so I need to be prepared for that when it comes back in. I am out of shields, so I bring in Haunter. It's going to almost barely survive that Bone Club. I do get to the Shadow Punch here, which is great for me. Trying to get better at under-tapping. That Alola Marowak, I don't think will be able to get to another move, and it doesn't. I've got a ton of energy with Bastiodon, so I fire off the Stone Edge here. He does decide to shield, and I Bastiodon actually cannot store up 2 stone edges, so whenever you're managing your energy with it, make sure that you don't overcharge, because you won't get any benefit for that energy that you've earned. That stone edge does bring down the Cresselia, and we win. Going to the last match of the video, I opened with Bastiodon against Alola Marowak as well. Church learned from last time though, he makes a very fast swap into Steelix. However, this is going to play out a lot like the last match did. He does have a little energy advantage because he switched so fast. However, I do have my Medicham still. Expecting that it might be Crunch, I don't shield and it's Earthquake. So always adapt, always keep learning. He does get to another charge move. I'm actually going to let Medicham fall here, opting to keep my shields. As I said before, if you can get rid of the fighter, then Bastiodon with 2 shields pretty much can mow down any team in the Sinister Cup outside of maybe, I don't know, Steelix or a boosted Mawile maybe. So I do fire off the Shadow Punch here against the Alola Marowak. He is going to shield it. I get some energy and then swap. We're going to absorb this charge move perfectly. Bastiodon is so thick with 2 C's, you know what I'm saying, that it actually is able to absorb that no problem. In comes the Poliwrath, and this is where I know I'm in trouble. So I haven't been able to remove that fighter from the equation. So this is going to be an interesting matchup for me. I do decide to let those attacks through. Now, I am saving those shields for the Haunter, but because these bubbles are so ramped, these shields are not going to matter. So I learned that as well. Like, if you're facing off against Bubble Poliwrath, you can bring it down, but those bubbles did so much work to me that I'm very weak, and that Alola Marowak finishes us off. Battlers, if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. I always like hearing what you guys have to say about the video, so definitely leave me your thoughts. Have you been stress testing lines? What are your favorite lines to use? Leave those all in the comments, and let me know. Keep it locked here for more Sinister Cup battles.